My name is Oilia Owens, and I'm 33 years old. It was 11 o'clock at night, and I was standing in my own kitchen, gently rocking my 6-day-old daughter against my chest, when my mother pounded on the front door. I'd handed her a spare key 3 years earlier, but somehow she still preferred announcing herself like she was serving a warrant. I didn't even bother looking through the peephole. I already knew it was her. Nobody else knocked like that, hard, demanding, like the whole world owed her an answer before she'd even asked the question. I opened the door with Nora asleep in my arms, and my mother didn't even bother saying hello. She brushed right past me into the living room as if she were inspecting property that belonged to her. Truth be told, in her mind, it probably did. Her eyes swept across the stacks of diapers, the bassinet tucked into the corner, and the framed photo of my late husband, Grant, sitting on the mantel. Then she let out a long sigh, like the sight of all of it somehow disappointed her. "We need to talk," she said. I told her it was late, that Nora had finally fallen asleep after crying for nearly 2 straight hours, and that whatever this was could wait until morning. But waiting had never been my mother's thing. Not even close. She settled onto my couch, in my house, and folded her hands together like she was about to hand down a courtroom verdict. "Your brother's family is moving in," she announced. "Danny lost his job. Carla can't afford the rent by herself, and the kids need stability. This house has 3 bedrooms. You're only using 2. I actually laughed because, for a second, I honestly thought she had to be kidding. Danny was 36 years old and had gone through 4 jobs in the last 6 years, and every single time, somehow, none of it had been his fault. Carla hadn't worked a single day for as long as I could remember. And now my mother was sitting in my living room, acting like their mess had suddenly become my emergency. I calmly reminded her that this house belonged to me. Grant and I bought it 4 years ago, and my name was the only one on the deed because Grant had insisted on it when we got married. Even back then, he always had this habit of protecting me, even when I thought I didn't need protecting. After the accident. After I buried him 7 months ago. After spending the last trimester of my pregnancy sleeping alone in a bed that used to hold 2 people. The house became mine in every legal sense imaginable. My mother flicked her hand through the air like ownership papers were nothing more than a suggestion. "Family comes first, Oilia," she snapped. "You've got room. You've got space. Danny's kids need a backyard. What in the world do you need all this room for? It's just you and the baby. Just me and the baby." Like Nora was nothing more than a footnote. Like the 6 days I'd spent recovering in a hospital room without my husband there to hold my hand during delivery didn't count for a thing. Like none of it mattered. Something cold settled deep inside my chest. Not panic. Not fear. Clarity. "No," I said. She blinked, almost like the word physically hit her. "No, Mom. Danny isn't moving into my house. Carla isn't moving into my house. Their kids aren't moving into my house. This is Nora's home. It's the only permanent thing her father was able to leave her, and I'm not turning it into a shelter for a grown man who can't keep a job. Ain't happening." My mother's expression shifted exactly the way it always did whenever she didn't get her way. One second, she was trying to persuade me. The next, she was accusing me. She called me selfish. She said Grant would be ashamed of the person I'd become. She insisted blood was supposed to mean something. She accused me of choosing a house over my own brother. Then her voice got louder. Nora stirred against my shoulder, her tiny face tightening before she let out another cry. "Get out," I said. And this time, I meant every single word. "You need to leave. Right now." She didn't leave quietly. She warned me I'd regret this. She said family never forgets betrayal. She claimed she'd raised me better than this. I walked straight to the front door, opened it while she was still talking, and stood there holding my daughter until she finally grabbed her coat and stormed past me into the hallway. Just before she walked away, she turned around and delivered the words that would echo in my mind for the next 4 days. "This isn't over. Danny needs somewhere to go, and you've got the space. I'll make sure you understand what family really means." I didn't say another word. I simply closed the door. Locked the deadbolt. Locked the second lock. Then I stood there in the dark hallway with my daughter's tiny heartbeat pressed against mine, realizing how naive I'd been to believe that becoming a mother would finally earn me a little peace from a woman who had spent her entire life deciding what I owed everyone else. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I sat in the nursery, rocking gently in the chair Grant had built with his own hands just 1 month before he died. I stared at the ceiling for hours, and somewhere before sunrise, I made up my mind. If my mother wanted to test what family truly meant, well, she was about to find out exactly what my name on that deed was worth. And trust me, she had no clue what was coming next. For days later, she showed up at my door again. Only this time, she wasn't alone. And this time, I was ready. Those 4 days changed something inside me. I did exactly what my mother never imagined I'd have the nerve to do. First, I called a locksmith and had every single lock on the property replaced. The front door, the back door, the garage, even the side gate Danny used to sneak through as a teenager. Every point of entry was secured. No shortcuts. No exceptions. Then I called my attorney. Her name was Priscilla Vane, a sharp, straight-shooting lawyer who had handled Grant's estate after his passing. She didn't waste words, didn't play games, and never left room for misunderstandings. I asked her to draft something very specific. I wanted a formal legal notice, the kind that couldn't be argued away during an emotional kitchen confrontation at 11 o'clock at night. The notice clearly stated that the property at my address belonged solely to me, Oilia Owens, and that anyone attempting to live there without my written permission would immediately be considered a trespasser under the law. No gray areas. No family loopholes. No, but we're related. Just plain, undeniable facts. After that, I had a video intercom system installed at the front gate. It came with both a camera and a speaker, making sure I would never again have to open my front door to someone who believed pounding on it counted as negotiation. By the 4th morning, around 10 o'clock, Nora was peacefully asleep in her bassinet when I heard a vehicle pull into my driveway. I picked up my phone and opened the live camera feed. Sure enough, there was my mother's sedan. And right behind it, a moving truck. My stomach dropped for a split second. Then, oddly enough, everything settled. Deep down, I'd known this was coming all along. My mother never made threats she didn't intend to follow through on. I'll make sure you understand what family really means. Those words had never been empty. Not once. I watched the screen as my mother climbed out of her car. Danny stepped out of the passenger side, looking noticeably less confident than usual. Carla climbed down from the moving truck with their 2 children trailing behind her. 2 men I didn't recognize followed them, clearly hired to haul furniture inside. They had come fully expecting to move into my home. Like the whole thing was already settled. Like I had no say in the matter. My mother marched straight toward the front gate with the same confidence she'd always carried. Like she still had a working key. Like the locks hadn't been changed. Like absolutely nothing had changed at all. She pressed the intercom button. On my phone screen, I watched her impatient expression slowly turn into irritation when the gate refused to open. I pressed the answer button. My voice came through the speaker, calm, steady, and completely emotionless. You need to leave. Just 4 words. That's all she got. No explanations. No debate. No second chances. No sugarcoating. For 33 years, I'd spent my life explaining myself to that woman. Defending every decision. Justifying every boundary. Carrying the weight of her disappointment as though I somehow owed it to her simply for existing outside the version of me she'd created in her own mind. I was done. Grant used to tell me something I'd never forgotten. Some conversations just aren't worth having twice. Turns out, he was absolutely right. My mother's face twisted with pure fury. She started yelling into the intercom, demanding that I open the gate immediately. She insisted Danny's family had nowhere else to go. She accused me of choosing pride over blood. She claimed Grant's death had turned me into someone cold, heartless, and unrecognizable. Same old playbook. Same guilt. Same manipulation. Behind her, I noticed Danny shifting awkwardly from one foot to the other. For the first time, it really hit me. He had never actually come to ask me himself. Not once. This entire plan had been my mother's idea from the very beginning. She'd orchestrated every single step, just like she always did, moving people around like pieces on a chessboard, treating lives like furniture she could rearrange whenever she felt like it. Except this wasn't her house. And this time, she wasn't calling the shots anymore. I didn't respond to a single word she shouted. I simply watched. Then, right on cue, because Priscilla was nothing if not precise, a courier pulled into the driveway behind the moving truck. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. The courier stepped out carrying a sealed envelope and walked straight to the front gate. He politely asked for my mother by name. She snatched the envelope from his hand, clearly expecting something completely different. The second she tore it open, I watched everything unfold through the camera. Her eyes scanned the first page, then the second. The confidence she'd walked in with slowly drained from her face. I watched her expression shift from pure anger to confusion, then disbelief. She stopped reading for a moment, blinked, and read the same lines again. Words like trespassing, formal legal notice, sole legal owner, and law enforcement will be contacted seemed to hit her one after another. Every sentence chipped away at the certainty she'd carried with her all morning. For the very first time in my life, she had run into something she couldn't bully. Something she couldn't guilt-trip. Something she couldn't argue her way around. The law didn't care about her opinions. It cared about ownership. And ownership had my name on it. Her hands began trembling. Not dramatically. Just enough for me to notice. Then it happened. A moment I'll probably remember for the rest of my life. Her phone slipped from her other hand. It smacked against the concrete driveway with a sharp crack. The screen exploded into a spiderweb of shattered glass at her feet. She stared down at it without moving, almost like she couldn't process what had just happened. Somehow, that broken phone felt symbolic. It was the first thing that had fallen apart without her being able to blame someone else. She couldn't blame me. She couldn't argue with it. She couldn't manipulate it. It had simply broken. Just like the control she'd spent decades trying to keep over my life. For several long seconds, nobody said anything. The entire driveway fell silent. Then Danny finally stepped forward. His shoulders sagged, and for the first time, he actually looked embarrassed. Quietly, almost apologetically, he said they'd figure something else out. No excuses. No arguing. No demands. Just acceptance. Carla didn't say a word either. She was already guiding the kids back toward the moving truck, her face bright red with embarrassment that had obviously started long before they ever arrived. I honestly wondered if she'd wanted any part of this in the first place. Maybe she had. Maybe she hadn't. At that point, it didn't matter anymore. My responsibility ended at my property line. My mother remained frozen beside the gate. She looked at the legal notice, then at the security camera, then toward the house. The house she'd convinced herself she still had authority over. The house she finally realized she no longer controlled. Not legally. Not emotionally. Not at all. Without saying another word, she folded the papers with stiff, shaky hands, turned around, walked back to her car, opened the driver's door, got inside, and closed it. No dramatic speech. No final threat. No last attempt to guilt me. Just silence. A silence that somehow said more than every lecture she'd given me throughout my entire life. One by one, the vehicles backed out of my driveway. The moving truck left first. Danny's family followed. Finally, my mother's sedan disappeared down the street. Only after every vehicle had vanished did I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. Inside the nursery, Nora began crying at the sound of the engines pulling away. I picked her up and held her close against my chest. She settled almost immediately, standing there in the nursery, the room Grant had lovingly built for our daughter before he passed away. I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. It wasn't grief. It wasn't fear. It wasn't anger. It was peace. Real peace. The kind that comes from knowing you finally protected the people who matter most. Nora would grow up in a home that truly belonged to her. A home built on love. A home filled with security. A home that was protected. Permanent. Untouchable. Safe from anyone who believed that the word family only meant sacrifice flowing in one direction. Because real family doesn't demand your home, your peace, or your future. Real family protects it. And for the first time in my entire life, I finally understood the difference.